Influencing popular culture, politics, and everything in between. The local station takes you ringside as we discuss the crazy world that is professional wrestling. This is Going Ringside with The Local Station.
Welcome to Going Ringside. I'm your host, Scott Johnson. Got a big show today because we got the big man in AEW right now. Tony Khan is joining us today to discuss, well, first, AEW is coming to our neck of the woods, Jacksonville, Florida, October 7th and 8th for the big homecoming over at Daly's Place. We're going to talk a lot about that. I was going to pick Tony's brain about, I always wondered, how did AEW start? I've kind of heard the Cliff Notes version, but I've never heard the full story. He's going to break that down for us. He's going to talk about MJF getting into the movies, Timeless Tony Storm continuing to be kind of a movie star, and just the status of AEW as a company. Some surprising things Tony is going to have to say. We've sat down with Tony before. This is our latest opportunity to pick apart the details of the media global wrestling company that he created in our city, Jacksonville, Florida, which is coming home for its homecoming soon enough, the 7th and the 8th. So let's get to it. Here's AEW owner. Here's Tony Khan. Well, we're excited to be joined now by AEW owner and obviously a guy close to the Jaguars, Tony Khan. Tony, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Great to see you, Scott. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we're excited because AEW's Homecoming is happening. You guys are coming back to Daly's Place October 7th and 8th. Big homecoming for you guys. I'm sure it's nice to come back home.
It's going to be great. I cannot wait for AEW Homecoming. We've got 2 shows in Daly's Place here in Jacksonville, which is so awesome because here in Jacksonville is where we launched AEW. So many of you were covering AEW at the very beginning when we announced we're launching a wrestling company. Now here it is. It's 6 years later, and this week we're celebrating the 6-year anniversary of Wednesday Night Dynamite. So I can't think of a better way to celebrate the homecoming than the very next week to come back and celebrate a homecoming where we spent so many of those times, so many of those great AEW shows, the place that's hosted more AEW events, big events, TV shows, pay-per-views than any other arena in the world. And that is Daly's Place Amphitheater in Jacksonville, Florida. We've had countless AEW events there over the years, and it's so great to come home for AEW October 7th, Title Tuesday, live on TBS and HBO Max. That's going to be a great show, Tuesday the 7th. Then we also have a huge AEW Collision Homecoming on the 8th on Wednesday. So the tickets are available for those shows now at AEWTIX.com, AEWTix.com for these shows in Jacksonville. And we've got a bunch of shows around Florida the next few weeks, including this week, the 6-year anniversary show in Hollywood, Florida.
I do want to, you brought up the origin, which always fascinated me. I knew you were a fan years and years ago. You knew guys like the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. But I always wondered, beyond the knowing the wrestlers, how did the logistics happen to get this, licensed in the state of Florida as a business, talking to your dad, getting a network deal? I always wondered how the origin went from an idea to this massive global reality.
Well, I didn't know those wrestlers, and I didn't have that kind of connection to start this. When I launched it, I was in LA. I was at a cocktail party, and I saw the president at the time of TBS and TNT, and I knew him. And I went up to him and said, with the way wrestling TV rights are going, I think it would make a lot of sense for us to start a wrestling league. And I would put the shows on TBS and TNT. At the time, there was no wrestling on TBS or TNT, but there had been for many years. There's a great history of wrestling from about 1971 to 2001 on TBS, and from the mid-90s, about 95 to 2001 on TNT. But neither network had hosted any wrestling for almost 20 years when we started. And it was 2018 when I went to the president of TBS and TNT and said, let's look at this. And he took it seriously. We had a lot of meetings. It was over a year before anything really happened, but it was a lot of meetings. And I started to realize there's definitely a market for this. I began signing up the wrestlers. It was a major commitment. And it actually was a bit of a gamble because I started signing the wrestlers before I had the TV deal because I could feel the TV deal was coming and that there was a market for what AEW was going to do. So in January of 2019, we announced the launch of AEW. We announced that we had signed a bunch of star wrestlers. It was January 8th, like literally meters, like feet away from where I am right now in Jacksonville, right outside of my office, where it was actually the first ever AEW press conference. We announced the launch of the promotion. We had a party with the fans, and we had a great celebration. We set off pyro in the parking lot, and we launched AEW and put eyes of the wrestling world here in Jacksonville. And then we went and took our opportunity, and we did the very first AEW event, Double or Nothing, in 2019. We set up with our very first episode of Wednesday Night Dynamite in October. Like I said, the 6-year anniversary of the first Dynamite is actually this week, this Wednesday on TBS at 8 o'clock.
I want to ask about something else that's kind of Jacksonville centric that happened to you, like a punch in the mouth. A year into this, the pandemic affects everyone. And AEW, if our viewers didn't know, became home in Jacksonville every night at Daly's Place for, I think, more than a year.
Yeah.
What was it like for you from a managerial end when you realized we can't travel? I mean, Florida was kind of a good state to be in for this. What was that dynamic like? How did you handle that?
Well, we made lemonade out of lemons. We had originally been scheduled to have an event March 18th of 2020 in New York. And given the way things were going, I canceled that event and then moved it to Jacksonville and then moved all the events for the foreseeable future to Jacksonville. And we, as you said, Scott, we did shows for over a year, almost a year and a half, just in Jacksonville. And every week the show was in Jacksonville. A lot of you viewers and a lot of the people that follow you, Scott, probably have come to the shows at some point, one time or another over the years. Or if you're new to Jacksonville, that might be their first time to come to a show at Daly's Place is going to be this coming week. But I do know that Daly's Place was a great home to us. Jacksonville was a great home to the wrestlers. For the veterans of AEW, we still talk about that era as the best time ever in AEW. For the fans of AEW, the longtime fans, they still look at that as some of the best shows we've ever done.
Were you the only, I mean, if I remember right, you were the only sports television in existence really for a long time. Everything else was shut down.
Yeah, all there was wrestling for a few weeks. There was AEW and WWE. For AEW, we were the only league that actually brought the fans back. There were months where we were the only wrestling show on TV that had fans in the stands. And we did it safely. We brought the fans back to the outdoor amphitheater. And then we did the same thing for the Jags. And if you look back, AEW was the first wrestling league to put fans in the seats. And the Jags were the first team to bring the fans back. NFL week 1, there were only 2 teams that had fans in the stands week 1 of NFL 2020. And it was the Jags and the Chiefs. And for the Jags, we used the exact same setup that we had been using for many weeks beforehand for AEW. So we found a system that really worked. It was like the checkerboard seating outdoors. I got the idea from drive-in movie theaters because I saw in the pandemic drive-in movies were making a comeback. And I thought that would work really well for wrestling. Put every family in their own section of seats, and then they could still come and enjoy the shows. And it made it great for the fans coming to the shows, and it made it great for the wrestlers because the wrestlers want to wrestle in front of the fans. The wrestlers love wrestling in front of the people, cheering and booing and having a good time, and that made our shows a lot better.
I do want to fast forward to 2025. You mentioned WWE. There's been an issue in recent months with them running pay-per-views the same night as, they call it PLE, same night as you guys. Your thoughts? Has this been a frustration from a business end?
Well, we're having a great year. We've been able to stick and move and make it work really well for us. There's always going to be tough competition. And in this sport, it's very tough competition, a kind of competition that makes you work really hard 52 weeks a year. And for AEW, we're having a great year. We've been putting on great shows. The TV shows have gotten great ratings. We've got great support from our audience, and we've really grown the audience in 2025. Not only have we added HBO Max and put new viewers on streaming, we've got more people watching the shows on cable than we did last year. For Dynamite and Collision, the audience has gone up. If you look where we ended up in Q4 of 2024, each quarter we've been going up, building our audience on TBS and TNT, while there's also people watching on HBO Max. It's kind of the opposite of what the analysts had predicted when we started simulcasting. So we're still seeing great returns, great audiences on cable. And I'm really excited about it because I think that 2025 right now, this year, has been maybe the best year of AEW ever. The pay-per-views, you mentioned pay-per-views, we're doing our best pay-per-views we've ever done. If you say, from the past 6 years, what are the top 10 AEW pay-per-views? I think there's a good chance 5 out of the 10, 6 out of the 10 would be from this year. So it's definitely a great year for the product of AEW, and we're very focused on how we can make AEW the best wrestling company it can be.
I do want to talk about some of your stars, and we do need to talk about them. And one who is transforming, and I'm noticing, and I got to ask you about him, is MJF. He's becoming a movie star. Can you talk to me about that dynamic? He's a wrestler too. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, MJF's a huge wrestling star, and now he's becoming a star of movies. He got a great role playing Happy Gilmore's son in Happy Gilmore 2. Happy Gilmore 2 is the most watched movie in America this year. And MJF's a big part of the movie. If you remember his very rowdy 4 sons, the main lead boy is MJF. He's the most prominent one. And they're supposed to be hard-hitting brawlers, and he's definitely the tough guy of the 4 Happy Gilmore boys.
What's it like for you guys backstage? Because I think I've seen he's got other movie deals coming. Like, is there kind of a buzz?
A lot, yeah. I mean, MJF's not the most popular guy backstage.
Yeah.
Most of the wrestlers don't really like him very much. So I would say that among some of the villains of AEW, there is some camaraderie. And, a guy like maybe Don Callis or Okada, I think those guys are probably happy for MJF. But a lot of the fan favorites in AEW, a lot of the fan favorites in AEW really don't like MJF very much. So that being said, everybody is very impressed with what he's doing. He is a really hardworking guy, and I am very impressed with MJF. I think he's an incredible wrestling talent. When he focuses on the wrestling, I think MJF is one of the best, but he always takes shortcuts. He's always trying to cheat his way to the top, and I don't even think he needs to, is the truth. He's a really gifted wrestler and a student of wrestling, a student of the history of wrestling and a student of technical wrestling. And also MJF is a student of acting now, and he's doing a great job with it. He's filming another movie right now. And for AEW, the executives, we are proud of what MJF is doing, even if he's not the most popular guy with some of the fans or the other wrestlers. He's a huge part of AEW, and he's working really hard. He just had 2 incredible matches last weekend in 2 different countries. He had an incredible match Friday night at the CMLL anniversary show in Mexico City against Mystico. It's one of the best matches I've ever seen. And then he went up to Toronto and had another classic, hardcore, hard-hitting fight in the Tables and Tax match with Mark Briscoe at AEW All Out, which is one of the best shows we've ever done in AEW. So kudos to MJF, big time.
On the opposite side, on the female end, there's this name I keep hearing every year is best woman in the world, best woman in the world, best woman in the world. And Mercedes Moné may disagree, but we're talking about timeless Toni Storm. You have built just an icon in this performer.
I think that she is an icon, and I think that iconic presence was always inside of her. And that's what I told her when we started this, is that she has that presence. She was at the time in her mid-20s, yet she had this timeless presence that she was going to clearly have throughout her career. This aura, this way of speaking, all these things that Toni Storm brings. And she's an incredible wrestler, and she's so charismatic, and the fans respect her. This transition she's made to timeless Toni Storm, she's found the classic movie star inside of herself. And she's become the first wrestler, not only of all the AEW stars who are on TBS, who are on TNT, but also the first wrestler now, Toni Storm, to be on TCM, Turner Classic Movies. And she is truly a timeless movie star, a timeless wrestler, and a great, great charismatic presence. You mentioned Mercedes Moné. At AEW All In, one of the best matches we've ever had was Timeless Toni Storm versus Mercedes Moné. They showed why they are maybe the two best on the planet. And I have to say, they are two of the best, but now we have a new world champion, Chris Statlander. Toni Storm was very shocked, surprised, and it seemed like impressed when Chris Statlander pinned her at All Out, upset her in that four-way match for the world title. That was a great four-way match. At some point, I would love to see the one-on-one rematch, Timeless Toni Storm versus Chris Statlander. But you're very correct, Scott, that Timeless Toni Storm is one of the biggest stars in wrestling, and she is one of the great reasons why AEW is having a great 2025 right now, and it's the tremendous, tremendous wrestling of Timeless Toni Storm.
And I do want to ask, because of your hat and because my sports team will destroy me if I don't ask, thoughts on the Jaguars? They've been looking pretty strong this year so far.
Very strong, and I'm really proud of the players. I'm proud of everybody who works at the team, and I think we're all proud of the new executive leadership. We have a great new head coach. Liam Cohen is outstanding. He's doing great things, and I believe Liam Cohen is becoming a great NFL head coach in his first year. He's a great play caller and a great leader, and now in his first year ever as a head coach, he's doing great things for the Jaguars. And we have great leadership with James Gladstone, who's just a tremendous person, such a highly intelligent general manager, such a hardworking guy, always working the phones, always working the trades, always brainstorming new ideas. And he and I get along really well because James is very analytics driven, very information and data positive. And I really like working with James. He's also just such a great person. And Tony Baselli, I've known for many years. He's got so much experience around the NFL. He's a Hall of Fame player. He knows Jacksonville and the Jaguars organization better than anybody. And Tony Baselli brings his leadership, his experience, and he's got great insights on the team, on the city, and the NFL. And I think we have a great collaboration with that group. And I thought my father did a great job in the search. I think my dad picked the best leaders for the organization, and we have a great group, and I really like working with those guys, Tony and James, and of course Liam.
Tony, one more question, but if you could stay on the line right after we conclude the interview, I do have a question for you. But on camera still here, we just had Taz on the show, and I asked Taz, how does Tony do it? Because you've got Jaguars, you've got Fulham, you're running media deals, you're running AEW. He kind of said, I'm not saying this because he's my boss. I'm saying this like Tony is just nonstop, 2 a.m. board meetings. You call him, Tony's there. I mean, how do you juggle it all?
It's really hard, but I do love it. I love the stuff I do, and I love being on call for football, for pro wrestling. I'm very lucky to work in the NFL and the Premier League and AEW. And all those things are going really well in 2025. We're having a great start to the Jags season. Fulham are off to a great start with their season. And AEW, we've been going for a while, since January 1. So it's a year-round season. There's no end in the wrestling season. It just goes from year to year, and then you start the next one. And it's been a great 2025 for AEW. And so I really am very happy with how it's going. And I just want to work hard and keep working hard to keep it going strong for AEW and the Jags and Fulham. And when it comes to AEW and the Jags, we'll get to show it firsthand to the fans here in Jacksonville very soon, because, again, we'll be back for Monday Night Football on October 6th, and then 2 nights of AEW in Daly's Place, Tuesday and Wednesday, after the big Monday night game. Don't miss AEW Tuesday, Title Tuesday, the biggest Tuesday show of the year in AEW, plus a huge Wednesday at Daly's Place, the home of AEW. It's going to be a great time. And Scott, I hope to see you there.
Hope to be there. AEW owner Tony Khan, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
I so appreciate Tony. They've been a great partner. They're our neighbor, frankly, if you didn't know. If I walked outside our studio right now, I'd look across the river and see the Jaguars Stadium, which is also AEW HQ. So glad to sit down with Tony and learn about everything going on. Based on those numbers that he's presenting to us, it looks like AEW is doing well 6 years into their time as a company. So thank you for joining us. We're going to see you back here next time.
This has been Going Ringside with The Local Station, brought to you every Wednesday on your favorite podcast player, on News4 Jax Plus, as well as the News4 Jax YouTube channel.